Republican State Senator and Senate Finance Committee Chairman Joan Huffman. Thank you so much and welcome to Eye on Politics.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Good morning.
Good morning. So, Governor Abbott, as you know, is now pushing very hard for bail reform. It's one of his emergency items. It was 2 years ago. You helped pass that bill in the Senate this time and 2 years ago. And so I'm
Yeah.
wondering, why is this so crucial that there be a change to the Texas Constitution?
Well, basically, because we need to give judges the ability to hold the most violent offenders without bond, awaiting trial, after due process and a finding of probable cause. Um, we have seen incident after incident in Harris County alone. There's been 162 murders in the last couple of years by individuals out on bond for a felony or a violent offense. So people are dying, and it's not just in Harris County. It's happening throughout the state, and it's time for us to listen to the victims' families and do something about this once and for all. That will give the judges that tool that they need.
But don't judges already have that tool to put in at least pretty hefty bail requirements?
They certainly have the ability to do so, to put a high bond. Many times they go back and lower those bonds. They do not have the ability to set a no bond or a strict, holding of a person, except for capital murder cases where proof is evident and that's been proven by the prosecutor. So this would give a tool to judges to use with violent offenders in cases like repeat offenders. We have so many examples that we could give you throughout the state, as I gave you the examples of the murders. But there's individuals who have gone out and committed multiple aggravated robberies, committed sexual assaults, got out, then did a murder. So there's all kind of horrible combinations out there of individuals who have committed these crimes, and no, they don't have the tools now to do what is necessary in some unique cases with the most violent offenders.
You mentioned crime victims before, and the governor has appeared with crime victims' families to push this legislation. And
Yes.
he has mentioned that there are new provisions that he would like added to Senate joint resolutions, provisions he said you have agreed with. And so will they be separate Senate resolutions that you will go back and have to pass in the Senate and I guess in the House as well? And can you talk a little bit about what those provisions may be?
Yes, and the way it would work at this point, let's put it that way, because things change in the legislature, as you know, in the last month of the session. But we presented language to the House. The House could change the Senate bill while it's going through the House process, and then when it came over to the Senate, again, we could concur with those changes because they had been agreed to up front. So that's one way that it could happen. And basically, the governor wants a very strong bill. I agree with the governor 100%. I want the strongest bill we can that provides the best protections for the citizens of Texas. And so that's what we're striving to do. But it's a work in progress at this time. We're trying to get the votes that we need to get this done, and but we're working very hard with the House to get that done at this point.
And are these provisions basically allowing prosecutors to have the right to appeal adjust a judge's bond decisions, requiring judges who release violent criminals on easy bail to explain their decisions in public in writing to the public in writing, and require judges to automatically deny bail for violent crimes, including murder, rape, and human trafficking, unless there is
There are
clear.
there are some provisions in the current bill that would provide for an appellate process for the prosecutors when they believe that the bond that has been set is too low. So that's currently in the legislation that is before the House. There are other provisions that where we have worked on new language that still provide. There's a presumption in the most violent cases that when the prosecutor makes that request to the judge, that there will be no bond, but the judge would still have the discretion to determine that a bond was appropriate, but would have to explain in writing why they believed that a bond was appropriate. So it gets a little technical, But again, the objective is to make Texas the safest that we can for our citizen and protect them. And I keep stressing for the most violent offenders, the vast majority of those arrested, these rules will not apply to them. These are for our violent offenders.
And two other questions on this topic. You mentioned the votes. 2 years ago, the House killed it. It didn't pass.
Correct.
Do you think that that is going to change this time around? Because as the governor pointed out, Republicans need 12 Democrats to actually make this work.
Well, I hope and pray that that happens. You know, we did get it out of the Senate 29-2, a very strong bipartisan vote. As Senator West from the Dallas area said on the Senate floor, as I presented my bill, this isn't a partisan bill. It's not Republican, Democrat. It's a common sense bill. This is a bill for the people. It should be above politics. And that's what I'm hoping that those, few House Democrats that we need will see this and listen to their constituents. Governor Abbott has pointed out examples in these members' districts of horrendous crimes that have occurred against their constituents by people on bond, and this law would have protected them. So that's a wake up call, in my opinion, for those who represent. You're going to represent your constituents. You have to think about their safety in their communities.
I spoke with Senator Sarah Eckhart, who is one of the two Democrats who voted against this. And she told me
Yes.
that her thought was that, if these are elected judges, and if the public feels as if these judges are letting people out on a low bail, then they can vote them out. What do you say to that?
Well, they can vote them out, but as you well know, there are many judges, especially in these large counties. When the electorate goes to vote, and I'll take Harris County because I'm most familiar with that. They have, maybe, I don't know, is there 52 judges or so they're voting for? It may be more than that at a time. It's very hard for the public to be informed about these judges. That's part of what we're trying to do with this legislation is bring transparency to the process, make judges, if they decide, they still have the discretion, but if they're not going to do what the presumption is, then they need to put it in writing. And hopefully this will bring awareness to the public so that they can make educated decisions when they vote. But as we know, that can be difficult sometimes. And so we're trying to make it, easier for voters. And yes, I would hope that they would vote bad judges out, no matter what their party is.
Wanted to ask you about Senate Bill 8. You were a co-author on that with Senator Schwertner, just about requiring local jails, sheriff's departments, I guess law enforcement to work with federal immigration authorities. Talk to me about why
Yes.
you believe that is so important.
Because I think that's, we have a lot of complaints about jail overcrowding and so forth. The truth is that many of the individuals in our county jails are in our country illegally. If we know who they are and work with ICE, there can be detainers and holds placed on those individuals. Sometimes that does help them move quicker through the process and move on through the federal system and get out of the county system. It's also a way for um, to assess their, whether it's appropriate, what their sentence should be, whether it should be probation. And we have another SJR that's pending that may get out of the House, which would provide for no bond for those individuals who are in our country illegally who commit a felony. So that information that would be provided through a 287G program would be quite helpful in determining who in fact was in the country illegally. It's just good information to have as an individual moves through the process.
And there have been examples of where those people who've been in the system have fallen through the cracks, but that was the federal system, not the state system. Is that right?
I would say generally speaking, but I think people can fall through the cracks in many of our state or federal justice systems. It's a big system, and sometimes it's hard to gather information. Many times, individuals that are arrested will, voluntarily provide information about their status. Sometimes they provide incorrect information, and some of that has to be sorted out. And as you know, federal immigration law can be quite complicated, especially in situations where there have been laws that have been changed a bit or interpreted differently through different administrations, and also, different executive orders that may be in place. So sometimes there's a complexity to an individual status that can make it, difficult to ascertain their status. So, that's part of the issue, is to determine their legal status, and this helps to do that in an expedient, a quicker fashion.
And I also want to ask you about the state budget, which you helped write. And I'm wondering, as far as property tax relief is concerned, we've seen some Republicans push back saying there's not enough property tax relief. And does the property tax relief in the budget so far, does that amount to $10 billion in new relief?
That is, yes. The short answer is yes. How that's achieved can be complicated because of some of the relief. The new relief comes from bills that have been in place prior to now. Laws that are in place, but the relief that they provide continues to grow as, for example, property values grow or student enrollment grows. So there's ways that the state is putting in more money for the relief. So that grows. So when you couple that with the new relief and the new homestead exemptions that have been proposed for across the board, and then those for over 65, through also some business property tax relief for the small business owners and so forth. When you start doing that, then it does add up to approximately 10 billion. Yeah.
And one more question on that. I know that the
Yeah.
House has legislation with regards to, I think it's House Bill 9, with regards to business property tax relief. I believe they, under that bill, would raise the exemption to $250,000. Does the Senate have similar legislation on that?
I believe that someone has a legislation. When I'm sure we'll look at that when the House bill gets over here. We also have passed out of the Senate legislation for personal property exemption for businesses. So that's like their inventory, which is always, a burden, especially for small businesses. So the Senate has passed that over. So I think we're at the point in session where some of these will be resolved. Both the House and the Senate are striving towards, significant property tax relief for homeowners and for business. So we're working to achieve that. And I think this is the point. We'll go to the conference committees and work out, the best avenue for that, and come to agreement on that. Those are the types of things that I think we will reach agreement on, and move forward for solid property tax and other types of tax relief.
And my last question to you, and I appreciate your time very much. I think I
Of course.
read somewhere this morning that you are considering a run for Texas Attorney General. Is that accurate? And talk to me a little bit about that.
Yes, I am considering it. I have a lot, to consider, of course. I love what I do for Senate District 17. But, I've been a prosecutor, a criminal district court judge. I've been a senator since 2008. I've been chair of state affairs, redistricting, now finance for a couple of sessions. I have a great knowledge of, the state, how it runs, and the criminal justice system and law enforcement. So I feel like I have the background for the position, and so I'm seriously considering if that's the right thing for me and my family, and I'll make that decision not too far off. But I've got a lot of other things I'm working on right now with this $364 billion budget that I'm working out with the House, and working on bail reform, and working with victims. That's very, very important to me right now. So I'm trying to focus on that.
All right, we will leave it at that. State
All
Senator
right.
Joan Huffman of Houston, thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Great to be here.